controlling Congress. In just 2 days from now, the United States will hold a critical midterm election that could set the tone for the rest of Joe Biden's presidency. All 435 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives are up for re-election, along with 35 seats in the Senate. President Biden and the Democrats currently control Congress, but with a slim majority. Meantime, Republicans have been gaining momentum despite having hundreds of nominees who continue to deny the legitimacy of the 2020 U.S. election. U.S. President Biden says democracy is on the ballot box.
We know democracy is at risk, but we also know this. It's within our power, each and every one of us, to preserve our democracy. And I believe we will.
So how critical is the midterm to democratic institutions? Joining me now is U.S. Ambassador to Canada, David Cohen. David Cohen, welcome to Question Period. Good to have you on the set. I want to ask you about Joe Biden, who repeatedly said democracy is on the ballot this midterm, basically, saying it's under threat. Are you afraid?
So I'm an eternal optimist. I'm not afraid. I mean, I believe in the enduring nature of our democracy and, frankly, of the democracy in Canada as well. It doesn't mean that democracy isn't under threat. It doesn't mean that there aren't challenging times. It doesn't mean that everything is smooth and hunky-dory. I do think democracy is under threat, but I do think in the end democracy will prevail. It always has prevailed, and I think it will prevail again.
But do you think it will prevail this time, or those voices that you hear more and more in the States will take over?
So this becomes a bit of a complicated question, because what does takeover mean? I think no matter what happens in this midterm election, and remember, we don't have a parliamentary style of government. No matter what happens in this midterm election, Joe Biden will be president of the United States until at least 2024. But the one thing I can tell you is that there is a historical trend that the party of the president loses a lot of seats in Congress in this first midterm election. There have been 22 midterm elections since 1934, and the party of the president has lost seats in 19 of those 22 elections. But the other thing I can tell you is that there's no linkage between what happens in a midterm election and what happens in the presidential reelect. So think about President Obama. Think about President Clinton. Both of them lost 60 or 70 seats in Congress in that first midterm election, and both of them comfortably won re-election 2 years later. So that's the pattern, and that is one of the reasons why I'm not concerned, and I don't think Canadians should be concerned about the outcome of one particular election in the United States.
Okay, that's somewhat comforting what you just said, but aren't you concerned that some of those candidates out there that are running for the GOP, for the Republicans, are 2020 election deniers? Is that one of the threats your president is talking about?
Well, it's not that they're election deniers that is the threat. It is the potential for what they might try to do as a result of their beliefs around what happened in the last election. And I think what the president is concerned about is that those individuals might try and change the election rules, might end up restricting access to the ballot and to free elections. But
they're already doing that, Ambassador. You see in some of these
doing it in
states,
some states.
Isn't it something that concerns you more than, I'm an optimist as well.
Right.
That's concerning, isn't it?
Right. So I'm concerned about any activities that potentially restrict the right of people to vote. I think that is a hallmark of our democracy. And it's one of the reasons why the president decried the violence against Speaker Pelosi's husband. because violence has just no place in a democratic system. And our elected officials, the families of our elected officials, should not be subjected to the threat of violence simply because of their relationship to an elected official. But so far, I don't think there's any real evidence that people are not voting because of what happened to Speaker Pelosi's husband. I think that although there are elements in our political system that have an interest in restricting in my opinion, in restricting the right to vote, there's no evidence yet that that's happening. And I think that it's, in our system of government, the freedom of the ability to vote absentee, to vote by mail, is one of the great protective mechanisms, because if you're afraid to go to a polling place or you're nervous about a polling place, virtually everywhere in the country now you can vote by mail or you can vote absentee. They're voting. They're exercising their right to vote, and that is the fundamental hallmark of a democracy.
So I want to talk about Donald Trump, because he was in Iowa last week, and this is what he said to a cheering crowd: in order to make our country successful and safe and glorious, I will very, very, that's 3 times very, probably do it again, very, very probably, get ready, that's all I'm telling you. So you expecting him to run again?
So you're trying to make me be a political commentator,
yeah, I am.
Which is your job,
Desperately.
which is your job. But I'm going to resist that, and particularly with that question, because I don't know what Donald Trump is going to do, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think a lot about what Donald Trump is going to do. I don't think it would be good for the Republican Party for Donald Trump to run again. I don't think it would be good for the country. I think he's a very divisive force in politics. But I'm not panicked by the notion that he might run again. I don't think he'll win. I think enough of the country is tired of Donald Trump that I don't think he'll end up getting a majority of the vote. I think Joe Biden is likely to run again. He has said he's going to run again. And I like Joe Biden's chances against Donald Trump in round 2.
Interesting. David Cohen, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to talk to us.
Well, thank you for having me on the air. And no matter what the results of the election are, America's democracy will be alive and vibrant, and the strong bilateral relationship between the United States and Canada will continue to exist and benefit millions of Canadians and Americans on both sides of the border.
Spoken like a true diplomat. Thank you.
Thank you.
After the break, preventing protests. After Ontario Premier Doug Ford used the notwithstanding clause to prevent a strike and pass back to work legislation for education workers, the union, Ontario opposition parties, along with several federal elected officials, are calling the move heavy-handed. Should the federal government do more to stop the increasing use of the legislation? Former NDP leader Tom Mulcair joins the scrum next. Stay right here with Question Period.